Good evening. How are you tonight? Albert Hitchcock style. Good evening. He's a funny dude. So, tonight's show is about usually spirituality. I like to talk about the different aspects of spirituality, and how far we can go and improve ourselves as what we are, not through items, not through spending money, not through anything really, but giving from our heart. Kindness, love, right? And what? I want to talk about, I got into a discussion the other day with a good rabbi friend of mine. I invited him on the show. He wants to come on, but he goes to sleep early. So, but you know what? We talked about Jesus Christ, which is kind of an interesting subject. And, he certainly has his own take on things. But I said, in the end, it doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what religion you breathe into. It doesn't matter. It's just a situation where Jesus Christ, he was a guy who gave up his life for the love of humanity, for the love, right? So I want to just kind of take that and think about that tonight, and also the fact that so many people out there are suffering. I talk to a lot of people, and mainly what they're suffering from is the outside world pushing in, not as much as their own world pushing out, not as much as any problems that they have, because we all have problems. You're not alone if you have problems. There's no, nothing new under the sun, right? They turn the news on. Well, like tonight, we just assisted Israel in attacking Iran and taking out nuclear sites. Trump just spoke for a few minutes. He came out. It was rather quick. We were on the chat just earlier, which is another show that I co-host on. So, what does it mean for you sitting where you are right now in your life? Not very much. It's not. I mean, if something happens to your neighbor next door, that's much more significant than what's going on with this Iraqi thing. And you can't be worried. You can't be worried about nuclear war. You can't be worried about all of these things. You can't, one, you can't stop the times. But number two, it's not something you can control, even by voting or whatever you think that you can do to make a difference in whatever. This world is run by evil people, and there's no other way to put it. I don't know if you listen to the Bible, they were pretty explicit, and that the archangel Michael took Satan, threw him out of heaven down to earth, nowhere else, no hell, nothing like that, not the subway, down to earth. And then whatever. So we fight against it every day. Every day is a struggle. Every day you wake up sometimes, and when you're depressed, and let me tell you, I've been there. I gained a ton of weight. And my mom died. I crashed and burned, and I thought that I was going to be okay that first year. And I pushed myself, man. And all I did was work and sleep and eat, you know. And it just, you know what it was? It's when you wake up and realize that all the special things in the world are kind of gone, you know, like the holidays and all the things that you share with somebody when that's taken from you. But there's nothing you can do because life is temporary. There's nothing you can say. There's no undo button. There's no way to rationalize it other than to say that this person raised me not as a fool, but as somebody who can survive in this world. And then that's what you do. And then you know what? You can't crash and burn because when you do, it only hurts them and then it hurts you. I learned that, so that's what life is. That's what life is. We learn to love. We learn to learn things. We learn. to learn things, right? I love knowledge. In my downtime, I'm on Coursera, getting certificates and whatever. I'm into it. Stimulates my brain, you know, and it's good to know things. It's good to have chance favors a prepared mind. It's good to know things. It's good to know that I've got a litter box and cat litter in my car right now in case I have to bug, in case I got to bug out. I live 3 miles from a nuke site, man, Lockheed Martin. You know that? The fact that I live near a place where they the bunker busting technology and bunker detection or whatever. Yeah. So that's why I'm bugging out. You gotta be ready. You know what? You gotta have a plan, especially if you got kids, you got family. If you have elderly people, you have to move. Is that scary talk? No, it's common sense. I mean, it's every day. There's always been a threat. Go back to the days of the Romans. Go back to the days of the Egyptians. There's always been the threat on the local population. The local population is always up for grabs. It doesn't matter what century you pick, that people are getting their asses kicked by the people who have things, and the people who don't have things are just getting stomped on. It's always been like that. It's never not been like that. The robber barons, and how they treated people in the factories and whatever, and all the pollution that people had to breathe in those towns, the steel mill towns, and all that. Yeah, yeah. Got to work at the company store, and the company store is you get paid with company money to spend money at the company store. They get people in debt. Oh yeah, even they gave them the housing. That they had to rent the housing out from the company. And if something happened to the worker, if they died, their wife and their kids would have 2 weeks to move out. Otherwise, they were moved out. That's people. That's humans. If there wasn't for other humans that came along and wanted to put a stop to all of that, it'd still be going on. But in a way, it is still going on. How many recycling companies out there are putting up pollution, vibration, and noise and destroying people's lives? I experience it myself because there's a place not far from here, and they do exactly that. And then I read all the time on how noxious fumes comes out of places, and then people call the DEC. The DEC says we're looking into it. I've worked with the DEC. They don't do anything. EPA, they don't do anything. Do you think that they would do something? Oh man, if you have a pond in your backyard, the DEC or the EPA especially will come around, and tell you about that pond water and where it should be at, and it should be treated and whatever. And you have to pay all kinds of money to balance things out. I know people have gone through it, So these government agencies aren't there for us. Well, they are. They're there for us to keep us in line, you know? So it really, if you want to look at your freedom as freedom, freedom is an illusion because you pay as you go. If you look at all these old stories and look at all these histories of wars and whatever, the only person who seems happy in all these stories is the weird old hermit off living in the woods that nobody messes with and then nobody needs. They don't even know he's there. And that's me. I'm the weird old hermit that lives in the woods. You know what I mean? And I want to go further into the woods. I want to go way further into the woods, close enough to a supermarket, but farther enough away from mass population. Because that's not just because of what's going on today. Those are the times. The days of sitting still is over and done with. It's time to move on. Be able to take off when you can. You gotta take off. You gotta take off. You gotta take off. You know. So, aside from being prepared, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. But then, if you have a good idea of where things are going, you can assume. You can assume what's going to happen, and then you plan for the worst and you hope for the best. That's really what it is. In the world of emergency management, you plan for the worst and you hope for the best, and that's all you really got. So when you go back to that chance favors a prepared mind, well, hell yeah. because if you're somewhat prepared, you're better off than other people that aren't. The people that'll be looking like, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to be cannon fodder, you know. But I mean, in America, it's going to be a conventional war. Do we have to worry about people invading? No, it ain't going to happen. You know why it's not going to happen? Democrats, because there's too many guns in the country, like you say. Too many guns. There's a gun behind every tree. You start. I live up in the sticks. Everybody I know around here has got a bunch of guns, not just one or two. They have a bunch. They have ammo and whatever. They're stockpiled. You think that if a nasty foreign entity came in, they wouldn't defend this country? Of course, because they're also those patriot types. You know what I mean? And so when I hear like the hardcore liberals, the ones who set things on fire and burn down police stations and torture people and hurt other people and whatever because they think that they can and they have been led to believe that they can, by other entities in the Democratic Party. This has gone on for such a long time now. Now they can't stop themselves. They get all wound up. But the reality is, the people out there. All right, as an investigator, I say this all the time. Laws are made for honest people. Okay? Do you understand? Laws are made for honest people because the criminals don't care about breaking the law. And if you say, well, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that, and you can't own this or you can't, you got to own a gun, you need to do this, and get into this program and whatever. That's all for the honest people out there because the criminals know they can go on the street and buy a gun in 10 minutes, 50, $60, whatever. And they've got a handgun, right? They've gone lethal in just a few minutes. I never hear Democrats ever say we need to get rid of illegal guns. I always hear them say we need gun control, gun control, gun control. But in the same sense, the people that they say that when the mass shooters go off, I mean, maybe 3 or 4% of them is Joe Blow from America who just has had enough, and then they flip out and they go out there and they want to do what they do, they hurt people, whatever. Most of the rest are people who are psychotropic drugs or whatever, and people have had severe mental problems. Lately, what we're seeing is that a lot of these people came and get, that the Egyptian Molotov cocktail guy who killed people just a couple weeks ago. He tried to buy a firearm. He was denied buying a firearm. So, and he's not the only one. There's a lot of stories like that where these people, the guy who drove his car into a place and blew up his bomb, they still kill people because dead is dead. Doesn't matter really how you do it. You push somebody out of a window or shoot them with a gun or a knife or whatever. Knife attacks and knife murders are very big in the U.S. And it's a very, very simple thing, and hard to defend yourself against. It's not easy, But you know what? This is the deal. You have to watch out for people who want to say you should be disarmed because you're a good, honest, trustable person. I mean, you jump through the fire hoops, you do all the paperwork. There's no reason for the government to push against you if you want to be a legal gun owner. So aside from that, the strength of this nation is you've got people who love their families, who love their friends, who love their towns, and they want to support that. So that's the strength of this country, and also a bigger strength is the background of people that we're a melting pot, we're a multicultural community in general. That's that's got strength because all those different cultures, even though we're all the same, we're all different. And then those cultures all have different ways, different teachings, different everything. So I love it. And I love learning about other cultures. And you realize that things just aren't too far off. I like the food aspect. I'm a foodie, man. Hence gaining the weight. It was, but like good food, not junk food, good food. good food. I like trying different things. You know, being from New York City, it's got New York City's got the best food in the world. Anybody says that their city or whatever, so stop, stop. Don't even say it unless you've been to New York. And I don't have to go to your city to tell you that the food is not as good as New York City because New York City has every culture, and those cultures open up restaurants, and that's authentic, authentic all the way. If you're going to get Mexican food in New York City, it's going to be authentic. If you're going to get Indian, it's going to be authentic. Ethiopian, it's going to be authentic. Vietnamese food is going to be authentic, man. It's not going to be some conglomeration of this, that, and the other thing all added into one. It's going to be authentic, right? So you get used to good things and people that put their pride and joy into it. I mean, there's a lot of love that goes into food. There's a lot of love. You know what? Alfredo, the Alfredo sauce, right? It's a beautiful story. It's a love story, man. So Alfredo was a restaurateur. His wife, who worked in the restaurant with him, was about to give birth, have a baby, right? And then she had a stillbirth, baby dead, all that, and she went into a deep, deep, deep depression where she couldn't do anything. She didn't want to work, didn't want to do anything, couldn't eat, didn't sleep, just basically. And Alfredo said, well, what can I make my wife? What kind of dish can I make that's going to entice her to eat? And that was like a big deal to him, man. So he took the Parmesan cheese and he took the butter and put it together, a couple of this, couple of that. There's no heavy cream, of course, in Alfredo sauce. It's just cheese and butter. Really put that together with this pasta, and boom. And she ate it. And it was love. And she knew the gesture was love. It was love that he cared. Plus, he wanted her to get back to work. But, it was love. And a lot of things happen. Look through history. There's a lot of food equals love in history, So, but it's passion. Passion is what brings people to a certain place. Passion is what you share. It used to be back in the day when I smoked cigarettes, like way back in time, smoked cigarettes. I didn't really inhale. I just like puffing them. I was in the club business, and it became like a thing to use your hand. And everybody smoked cigarettes, and then I was like, I just kind of like the smell of it, and I like. I smoked cigars too at that time, But a cigar, you gotta dedicate yourself to. There's no easy puff, 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 10 minutes and you're done, man. A cigar, you need a good 45 minutes to really, get on that honker. You know what I mean? But a big thing in the city, when I met somebody from a foreign country, we would trade cigarettes. They'd be like, what are you smoking? I got my Marlboro, and then they've got whatever, and we would trade cigarettes and we would talk about things and whatever, and share stories where you come from. And this is before the internet, you know what I mean? Like this was like people in your face. I worked in a club. I was in the music business in general, so I moved around a lot. But I worked in a club where I ran. You got a major club in New York City. You're going to have a ton of people coming in from all over the world, and we did. The bands too, mainly the bands. Working close to the bands and their roadies and whatever, and then a lot of them are from other countries and whatever. And it's just fun to talk and hang out. I got a lot of cool stories about that. Just there was no YouTube, nothing like that. No way to document things. It was just people coming through. I was in a unique position, especially with my friend Frank's club in on Long Island called Sundance at the time. Frank Cariola, he just recently passed away at 96 years old, man. Frank was a great guy, great concert promoter. Somebody I learned a lot from, a lot. He was friends with Ron Delsner and John Scher and all these other people that were big concert promoters. If you go see a concert in New York City at the Garden or any of these places, Meadowlands, one of these guys was most likely their promoter, promoting the event. So anyway, I would hang out at Sundance. I had a loose schedule at that time. So I would hang out there. during the afternoon with Frank. Like I show up early. So this is when the bands come in and do their sound check, and like the roadies can't do a sound check, obviously. It's got to be the band. They got to roll through a song or two and that type of thing. So like Motorhead would come through all the time. And I actually established a little relationship with Lemmy, because I saw him so much, we talk a lot. And then later on, I became a writer on Long Island for Good Times Magazine. It was even better because I had known all these characters already, and it was easy to talk to them. So anyway, I got to meet a hell of a lot of people, and because all the bands that you see, the big bands, when they have a solo effort, they play the smaller venues, and then they'll come through a place like Sundance, which held a couple thousand people. It was supposed to hold like 600, but I know Frank put more than 3,000 people in there a few times, and man, talk about dangerous. You couldn't even walk through the place. But so but I had a good there. I had a good. He never charged me to get in. We were friends. I mean, I didn't do anything for him. I mean, it wasn't like some trade off or something. We were just friends, hanging out. I did. I helped them. I mean, there's things if they needed help during the night, or whatever. I was happy to do whatever, man. But I did lights sometimes, like pushing the buttons for bands on stage, like during the week, or running sound or something like that. That was cool. Spotlight. I like to run follow spot. There was some major shows, and that was fun. You know, and then I never charged anybody for any of that because I hung out there for free. So that was cool, and it was a family. I mean, it was a family. Just everybody who worked there, and just some real personalities, man. So anyway, it was the good old days, man. And anybody you name, I probably had a conversation with him, hung out with him. Jason Bonham, John Bonham's son, he had a band called Bonham. They came through. Bruce Dickinson, when Iron Maiden, he did his solo effort, and he came through there too. And then hung out, talked to him about being an airline, or being a pilot, not an airline pilot, but he's a pilot. It's kind of like flying jets or whatever. It's just cool stuff, right? So it's the flavor of life. Did I set out to do that type of stuff? I kind of levitated towards it. There was the world that I was in. My friends in my hometown, they were all blue collar guys. They ended up working for the town and whatever. And then they did their thing, opened up their little businesses and that type of thing. They were set. They made great money, and then they owned houses early and all that. They were set. And that's. But me, like, I started going into New York City and hanging out with another friend of mine, and then my other friends wanted nothing to do with Manhattan. It was like taboo, even though we were on Long Island, not even a half hour if there was no traffic. If you're going to cruise right in to New York City, you know, and you know what? And that's fine, because the world that I went into was really weird for them. I invited them. Frank said, have your friends come out, want to see a show or whatever. And I was able to use, there was an office on the second floor in Sundance, and it had a big wooden window, like plywood, that you could take out. And then you're right on the stage, like you see the stage. The stage is right there. You sit back in these nice chairs and recline, and you got to see the shows and whatever. And the DJ booth was right there next to it, and I was able to go in there and ask the guy to play a CD or whatever he was doing. This guy fingers, and he was on WBAB radio. So I mean, it was cool because it was like I don't know, it was just fun. And one of my friends came out for a pretty sizable show. I think it was Winger, actually. It was Kip Winger, and if you know Winger, the girls come down, like the girls who the fans show up like wearing lingerie and stuff. Like just imagine thousands of beautiful girls wearing lingerie. You know what I mean? Of course, my friends are going to come out for a show like that. They didn't care about Winger. They didn't listen to Winger. They listened to Leonard Skinner and stuff like that, like Led Zeppelin, like me. But it was a spectacle. It was fun. It was fun to see. It was fun to do that, and it was fun for them. But like one of my friends was like, man, He's like such. He's like I can't handle like. I think it was too much of a rush for him. The lights, the sound, everything, the everything. You know, the amount of people too. You know that you got to kind of wade through. You got to get through the crowd. It's not so easy. I'm 6'5", so I'm lucky, man. I rise above people. I see above their heads. I'm not short and stuck in the crowd. And then I'm also a big guy, so people tend to get out of my way. You know, but people usually assume I'm a bouncer, like some kind of security. I got this. I've hung out in situations they thought they. Oh God, it was uh, Guns N' Roses. Guns N' Roses played the Ritz, and then I wasn't working there anymore. At that time, I had given them up to do something else, and and then I was just standing around, and their manager thought I was security for them. And then he's like, come on, we gotta go." I'm like, "We're gonna go." He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna get on the bus, man. We gotta go next gig." You know, and I got on with them, and then cruised and hung out. And it took them like 24 hours to realize that I didn't work for any of them. You know, and then I had to take a fucking taxi cab home. That was interesting. Like $300 taxi cab ride. But it was a story. It was fun, man. So whatever you do in life, the point I'm talking about is crap. You gotta do what makes yourself happy. And you can't live by somebody else's notion. You can't live by somebody else's rules necessarily. I mean, you know, yeah, there's rules in government, murder and whatever, crime. I'm talking about people in your life that you're living by their expectations, or trying to live by some rule that uh, is unnatural for you. You know, you need to do what your personality basically dictates. You know, and then and don't sweat the small stuff. You know, Dennis Dillon. I refer to him often. He was Nassau County District Attorney and very big in my life when I was a kid. I didn't see him much, but when I did, it was impactful. He lived in my town, and I knew his kids basically. You know, and then he always told me his little tidbits. Yeah, don't take yourself too seriously. You know, and I get that. You know, I get that. And there's times that you can, your ego can go out of control. You know, there's times that, like when people are disappointed with their kids because their kids aren't doing what they want them to do. As long as your kids are doing what they want to do, when it's all legal like and they're not hurting anybody or anything, let them do what they do, because they're going to have to learn for themselves. You know, when I was young, I had a bunch of older guys around me telling me all kinds of stuff. You know, a lot of them had been in old wars, World War II, Vietnam. They had a lot of experience, man, more than me. I didn't appreciate that because I was a cocky dude. You know, I was a cocky dude. You know, I mean, even when I was 15, 16, I was pretty confident in of myself and my abilities. And nobody messed with me, certainly. You know, also I didn't mess with people. You know, and I know what I liked, and I know what I was seeking out. And I had a real thirst for danger, believe it or not. And because, you know, I grew up abused and all that, so I didn't have much of a reckoning on my own personal safety. It was more about, I don't even know if it was more about danger. It was more about living life and seeing what else was out there. I was hanging out in neighborhoods that were very, you know, crime ridden. They're crime ridden, man. And then always something, shootings and whatever happening all the time. And I made good friends there. I made good friends there. I was there to buy weed. That's when I first went there. My friend Tommy Klinger, who started teaching me martial arts when I was young. Tommy would always teach me stuff and teach me how to take guns away from people, take knives away. He was into American combat karate, and he was really, really intense dude. You know, taught martial arts in a town close by, and then really we called him Crazy Tommy Klinger. You know? So Crazy Tommy, you know, and he smoked weed, and I was at this point I was 17, And then, well, 16, 17, yeah, 17. And I was looking for weed. I wasn't like a big pothead at that time, but I was like looking for weed. It was not easy to find, man. You know? So he's like, dude, you got to go to Far Rockaway, Queens. He's like, you go to this Beach 15th Street. You turn right. You go down the street. And there's another street that goes left. And he's like, you drive down halfway. There's a big open lot on the left-hand side. And there's a couch in the middle of the lot. And there's a black guy with dreadlocks sitting on the couch. He got the weed. like, okay. I grabbed my friend Chris. I told him that. I'm like, dude, we got to go to Far Rockaway. And it wasn't all that far from where we were. And then made my way down there. Just like Tommy said, it went down. Dude sitting on the couch. Walked up to the dude sitting on the couch. And then you got some weed. He said, how many bags do you want? And that was Kismet. And then, that guy I made very good friends with overall. And then he was from Jamaica. And then we have a long history together. Still friends with him. He's back in Jamaica, but I made friends on that block that I've had since the mid '80s, man. Very long freaking time. And I saw it all there. Like everything, all this crazy stuff that will go on and crazy crime and oh man, I could write book after book after book of stuff that happened there and different things, on my life on Long Island, man. My neighborhood, stuff like that didn't happen. If something happened, it was a rarity. But when you're in a high crime area, that type of stuff happens. That's like it's going to be in the high 90s here in the next few days. So when it's like that, you're going to think I'm more of a wacko than you think already. When it's like that, I like watching Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, right? If you know the movie, you know what I'm talking about with the hot weather. Okay? And then I order a pizza with extra cheese, and I have it delivered, and I get to call the guy Mookie. Yeah. Hey, Mook. That's all I got to say. Hey, Mook. And I tip him extra, call him Mookie. So, in the movie Do the Right Thing, it was supposed to be a depiction of Bedford-Stuyvesant, one of the most dangerous places you can go in the New York City metro area. You can go online, look up Bedford-Stuyvesant crime. There's a live crime map that you can watch and by the minute see, theft, robbery, murder, this, that, blah, 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 blah. Dangerous, dude. I've been there at 3:00 in the morning, dropping off a friend. Man, I never, never in my life have I really felt unsafe. That time I felt a little, you know what I mean? Like, But, because there was a bunch of dudes talking under their breath when I showed up. And even though the neighborhood that I came from, hung out in anyway, when I dropped that person off, I was just giving one of my friends' girlfriends a ride, actually. Her and her kid. And these guys were all talking about robbing me because I heard someone say, let's rob his ass. Well, I'm a big dude. Even if you're a bunch of guys, a big dude is still a big dude. And I got the hell out of there. So, and Do the Right Thing, it was the Italian pizza shop owner who was the evil people. Well, a couple of them anyway. One of them anyway. And then there was the police that were evil, and then there's this guy, Radio Raheem, who was basically the local drug dealer. And then, the cops end up choking him out and killing him after he tries to kill the pizza owner because the pizza owner busted his radio up because the guy walks into his pizza place with the radio, blasting it with all kinds of anti-stuff, all because one guy looked up at the wall of the pizza shop and he saw there's all these white Italian people up there. Why don't you put some black people up there? Because black people eat pizza here. Now, I would have been like, bring me some pictures. You want to put some black people, the people up on the wall, the people that I grew up with, and ones of the actors that I like, bring me some pictures, and I'll put them up. That's all you had to say. But then Spike Lee wouldn't be able to have his movie. right? That's all you have to say. Bring me some pictures. You know, you want to thwart something like that, easy peasy, right? But no, it became a whole different thing, and they burned the place down and whatever. It's a great movie, man. The cinematography is unbelievable. Just the eye for the camera and all that, and the artistic intent, really cool stuff. Like I said, I have to watch it when it's over 90 out and whatever. But anyway, the one thing the movie lacked was black on black violence. There wasn't any, none, didn't exist. No black people committing crimes, nothing, nothing, except for the guy Radio Raheem walking around selling dope. You know, nobody else committing crimes. So it's not real. It's not reality. It's not even a touch on reality. So therefore, the statement that you make is not valid, Spike Lee, because you're saying the cops push too hard or whatever, and they kill these guys. Let me tell you, man. I dated a police officer. She was a homicide detective in Queens. I met her on that block when she was investigating one of my friends for shooting somebody. Sounds weird to say, but he was defending himself, so it was kind of a thing. Because people get robbed all the time in that neighborhood. They were always trying to rob him, his house, his garage, and whatever. And. Anyway, those cops in Queens and Brooklyn and Bronx, all these any high crime area. I mean, there's nice neighborhoods in Queens, nice neighborhood in Bronx, or whatever. But I'm talking about, let's say, if you're a police officer in a high crime area, you know when you go to work that you may not come home. Because anything can happen. Anything can happen. And then there's a lot of illegal guns on the streets. There's people that have no problem using those illegal guns, especially shooting police officers. And especially the last several years with Democrats in the city, they're not punishing people for hurting police officers, shooting them, killing them, or doing whatever. They're letting them go. With this bail reform, they're letting them go. So what message does that send to the sociopath? You're saying that they're disadvantaged and they're shooting a police officer. I'm saying that if they have any common sense or brain or decency, they would never even think about shooting a police officer or hurting anybody. They're hurting anybody. They're sociopaths. That means they have a psychological condition that makes it so they can't function in society without victimizing people. This way, we put them in jails. That's why we build jails. Jails are built for sociopaths, right? You lock them up where they can't hurt anybody else. They hurt each other in jail. They can't hurt any innocent people. So it defies logic for Democrats to say we're going to let them go, and then hopefully they show up to court, right? So without putting the emphasis on black crime, you'll never solve the problem. You'll never, ever, never solve the problem. Because the problem comes from the person that's doing the crime. It doesn't matter what color they are. It matters they're doing a crime. I don't care if more than one group does crime than over another group does crime. It doesn't matter. You're locking up the individual. You're not locking up the color of the person, the religion of the person, their background. You're locking up the criminal who committed the criminal act. You can't drag color and all this other stuff into it because they're acting solely unto themselves, or they're disadvantaged and whatever backstory you want to flip on it doesn't matter because they committed the crime. They committed the crime, right? That's the deal. So I love the movie. I do, Spike Lee. I love the movie, but the intent of the movie is giving a whole segment of society, all colors, by the way, of sociopaths, the pass. Because black people know in their neighborhood that their place can be broken into at any time, that their cars can be broken into at any time, if they have a car. Whatever was out there, they can be assaulted. I'm going to tell you a story. And it's horrible. It scared the hell out of me. There used to be a bar I worked at when I was a teenager, and I lied about my age to work in a topless bar in Queens called Happy Tips. Tips, not tits. Happy people say Happy Tits. No, Happy Tips in Queens Village. I was 17. I told them I was 21. I needed a job, and I figured I'd work in a place like that and meet some girls. You know, whatever. I needed a job and I was horny. All right. That's what was cool that I was working there. Anyway, so we used to hang out late after hours in the bar till whatever. Sometimes we close early. It depends if there's nobody around. This was a Sunday night. It was closed early. I think probably 1 o'clock in the morning. Right? We're in there partying, people doing coke and whatever, and smoking weed and just chilling out. And then time to leave, time to lock the place up. And I was parked. My car was parked down the street. So I'm like, I'm gonna go get my car and I'll be right back. Because I was giving a couple people a ride. Right, we're gonna actually go hang out at this other after hours place and shoot some pool. So anyway, I had this Z28 Camaro at the time. I go in my car, and then I'm like, I had to take a leak. So the train station was right there. So at this point, it's probably like 3:30 in the morning, something like that. I go into this concrete culvert to take a leak. Nobody around. I didn't see anybody coming. The train steps to the train station was right there, but I didn't see anybody. So I'm going there. I do my business. And then I start coming back out. And when I'm walking out, this black lady was walking past. And then she sees me. And she starts screaming, "Oh, Lordy, no. Oh, Lordy, no. Not tonight. Not tonight, Satan. You ain't going to get me tonight. Oh, Lordy, no. Oh, Lordy, no." And I'm like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just taking a leak. She's running down the street, screaming at the top of her lungs, and shit's echoing all around. And that was a tricky neighborhood, man. You know what I mean? You don't want to be that guy threatening that lady in that neighborhood. She's running down the street, and anybody is there going to come out. So I'm like, Pink Panther, man, exit stage left. It's time to go. Time to get the hell out of here. And it scared the hell out of me because I didn't know. I didn't know she was going to call the police and the cops. You know, they're just going to see I jumped out at her at some culvert as she's walking past. I can see her understanding of the situation, but she couldn't see my understanding because she was running down the street screaming. And then meanwhile, I'm the one who would help you if there was a problem. You know, I'm the one. I don't victimize people. Oh my God! But that's how stuff happens. It happens that quick. It happens that easily. It can happen to anybody out there. Is mistaking this and whatever. And then people start flipping out, and guns come out, and knives come out, and ugh, that was nuts, man. But I can see their point, and yeah, probably anybody. I mean, there was I couldn't peek around the corner waiting for someone to come out. I didn't even think I'm going to be around. She probably told that story for years. Yeah, this big white man jumped out at me, trying to kill me, chased me down the street. I was laying, "Oh Lord, help me!" Like, so she said, Lord, help me." I went back and grabbed my friends. I'm like, this black lady running down the street saying, "Lord, help me," thinking this is going to do something there. We got to get the hell out of here. They were like, "What?" I mean, no matter what, we've got to get the hell out of here now. So anyway, yep, mistaken identity, whatever. It's not the first time that's happened, actually, weirdly enough, and not the last either, but I'm very stealthy. I was raised by a lot of military people. So when I walk, I leave no tracks, like that's what they say, leave no tracks, be silent and leave no tracks. But I don't know. You just have to, you got to follow your passion. And I think that's the best message of all. I always talk about purpose, sense of purpose, finding your purpose. What's your purpose? What's anybody's purpose? Purpose isn't something you find. The purpose is something that finds you, and then you're well suited to handle that purpose. I kind of think that if you've got the skills to do things, you should do things. You know, otherwise you're not realizing your full potential in this world. So, but tonight, as we attacked Iran, everybody's got their different opinions on it for sure. The media will come out with their spin. It seemed, I mean, before I started doing the show tonight, before I went on the air, and we were doing the chat, and we're going through the news. There wasn't much happening in the news wise, and then Trump was going to come out, give a speech. I thought it was going to be one of his normal, long, speeches, but he was like, boom, 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 we bombed them, bombed their nuke sites, and there was no way that Israel would have been able to do it because they didn't have the plane. Apparently, only the B 2 bomber can deliver that type of bomb, right? And the big bunker buster that goes down hundreds of feet and explodes, taking out whatever is down there. Really, it needed a demolition job, like James Bond type of go down there, set explosives, and get the hell out of there type of situation. If Iran, see, and Iran, you know what? This happened because Iran was playing the game. Israel is whipping their ass. Iran comes out and says, and Trump says unconditional ceasefire, unconditional surrender. We'll have a ceasefire, and that's it. Iran, Israel and Iran, right? Dude from Iran comes out saying, we're going to hold people accountable. This is where we will have a ceasefire if America's held accountable and Israel's held accountable and punished for what and all that stuff, and then talking about the nukes that they were just a few steps away from making nuclear warheads, right? Nuclear weapons, and you know that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. They're a terrorist state. So in my book, I've been living with this a long time. I remember back in the 70s, I was a kid with the whole Shah of Iran, and that happened, and Ronald Reagan was going in there. There was the hostages and all that other stuff. So yeah, this is the deal. You can't let an entity like that exist. That has their sole purpose is to destroy other people. Before they pray, they say death to America, death to Israel. Now, your average Iranian, they don't want that. They want what we want: peace, safety, decent prices for stuff. I mean, be able to save a few bucks, right? Have something, clean air, clean water, clean land. You know, I mean, does any human want anything more or less than that? And I think that if we all realize that around the world, no matter what language you speak, no matter what you got, these are the basic things that we want for ourselves, and it's not terrible to want these things for ourselves. You know, so now Trump says it's a time for peace. Well, I'll say this: he did everything the right way. The whole 2 weeks thing, I wouldn't have even said 2 weeks. I would have just been like, you know, now, now, yesterday. You know what I mean? You got no time. Don't give people time to think. You don't give them time to, you want to keep them going, and not give them any kind of ability to move materials, nuclear materials, because then it was talked about that they were moving this plutonium that they've gotten to other places. So then Iran, their thing was, we just want nuclear power plants so our people can have power, especially in the remote areas, have power. So then we were like, this has been ongoing for years and years and years. We were like, okay, we'll supply you with that material so you can have those power plants, and you don't have to refine uranium or go through the process. We'll give it to you and sell it to you. No, we want to refine it on our own. So obviously everything that they've done has been a move to have a nuclear bomb. They know if they have a nuclear bomb, then they can force people, local people, other countries in the area, even Israel. They could destroy Israel. They can give a nuclear bomb to a terrorist group, and they can deliver the bomb. They can hit it anywhere and anywhere and anywhere if they can get there. Right? No way that Iran could have a nuclear bomb. And the regime has to go. The theocracy has to go. Their religion is what causes them. I mean, it's just justifying all their hate. It's not even being a Muslim. They don't go by the Quran. I've read the Quran. They don't go by the Quran. They're going by their own whatever they can fit into it, their own craziness of power. Look how they abuse women. Look how they abuse either people. They kill people. They have no problem throwing somebody off the roof of a tall building if they think they're homosexual or something. This isn't a country that has any kind of understanding of democracy. So, what they support is evil. They are evil. What's interesting? They invented evil back in the day in the Bible and history. It was the Arabs that came up with the whole bit about Satan and the levels of Satan and all that other stuff. In the Old Testament, Satan was the accuser, the one like almost like a district attorney accusing you of a crime type of thing, was the accuser. But then it became something else when the Arab world got involved. So, but whatever. What's done is done. It's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. I think that Trump was elected to do exactly what he's doing, this job. And I don't have any problem with dropping bombs on them. I would have done it sooner. The second they said, hold people accountable, we're not going to have a ceasefire and whatever. The cards are on the table now. But beforehand, it wasn't like they were winning or had any ability to win. If you have no ability to win and you have to negotiate, then you have to negotiate. If they had that nuclear bomb now, they would definitely use it, right? So my understanding is also that there's a fear that they can put, and this was my question a while ago, that and then now they're talking about that they can put nuclear material in rockets and then deliver that payload and make dirty bombs out of it, whatever. So it's the good people in Israel who have to face this down. They're the ones who are more in striking distance. But also, what, sleeper cells or people on our bases and that type of thing. I think the next 24 hours is going to be very telling. Stuff might happen, stuff might not happen. I think that the whole world knows that Trump is willing to go there, and he saw a threat, a problem, and then they did what they had to do. In his statement tonight, he said that any kind of reprisal, anything that they think about doing, that we can go after them and it'll be swift, and he said swift and easy, really easy. And I think that they're ready to rock and roll, man. They're ready to rock and roll. So, but you yourself and me, we just have to survive every day. It's gonna be hot as hell the next few days here in the Northeast. I think everybody, of course, you gotta look out for your pets and your people, elderly people in your life, and make sure that they stay cool and that type of thing. But there's real things that we're dealing with on a regular basis, and then the world is the world. But if you elected Trump, even if he didn't, he's your president. So I feel like he knows what to do. I was never a huge fan of Trump. He is what he is, but I feel like he was elected to do what he's doing. I don't have a problem with anything going on right now. I think that we should have settled Iran's hash a long time ago. I think that the world is going to be safer without that axis of evil. Iran's all their neighbors who are supposed to be their allies and support them, they all said the same thing. Iran who? Iran who? They're not sticking up for them. They're not going to go out there and stick their neck out for them and get their heads chopped off. So I think that it's just something that had to happen. If it didn't happen now, they would have gotten bombs. They would have made a bunch of bombs, and then it'd be a whole different ball game. But these are people that kill innocent people because of their beliefs. And then just keep that in mind. What they think of you and me and everybody else in the free world is that they hate us and they would like to kill us. And that's not, like I said, that's not the Iranian people. I know Iranian people. I've met Iranian people in the city and whatever. I used to go to those restaurants too. It's very nice, whatever. A lot of them are very politically minded and just rock solid people like anybody else. It comes down to their stinking government and what they're doing to people. So anyway, I'll let you guys go on that note, and I'll see you guys next week on the show. You know what? If you see something suspicious, report it. Keep your head low, admit to nothing. If you can move out into the woods, do it. Be the crazy hermit that lives out in the woods. Right? Isn't that kind of how it goes? Even it's just in your mind. Don't get caught up in other people's bullcrap. I'll see you guys next week on the show. Bye.